Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your Week 4 Monday Morning Breakfast Bite. So here we are, halfway through the modmester, and this week we're going to be studying about investor protection, ethics, and accountancy. So everybody should be familiar at this point with the Bernie Madoff case, and obviously that is one of the primary examples of ethics and violations by someone in the Securities and Exchange area of our industry. So when we talk about investor protection, we're talking about two different types of laws. We are talking about the Securities Act and we're talking about the Securities and Exchange Act. Now, the Securities Act was put in place with regard to initial public offerings. So when we think about the Securities Act, we're talking about initial public offerings. We're talking about the type of investments that require initial public offering in order to move forward, and the types of investments that are not required to have an initial public offering because they meet different criteria, and so they can be done in a private offering up to a certain amount on an annual basis. So that's what we talk about when we look at the Securities Act. Then comes along the Securities and Exchange Act, and the Securities and Exchange Act is about what happens after a company's initial public offering is approved. So when we look at the two different acts, understand that you're looking at the startup and then you're looking at the continuation, because with the Securities and Exchange Act, now we need to focus on the requirements, the regulations, the standards that are in place for those who are going to be trading in the public marketplace. And so that's what we talk about. So when we talk about violations of the Securities and Exchange Acts, that's what we're talking about, the Securities and Exchange Act violations that occur. So when you look at the PowerPoint this week, I want you to think about those things in mind. Think about also the social responsibility and the requirements on conducting business and conducting business in the correct manner. So I'm scrolling through my PowerPoint right now as you see me look to the left. And when we get to investor protection, pay attention to that section of the PowerPoint as well, because again, securities laws, we're talking about disclosure and fraud prevention, but we have the Securities Act of 1933 and then the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934, not to mention all of the state blue sky laws that also apply to the transaction of securities within a state. So we know that the Securities and Exchange Commission was established in 1934 under the Act, 1933 Act. So you want to look at the types of securities that are involved in the Securities Act as well as the Securities and Exchange Act. Now, we are all aware as we go on into looking at the 1934 Act, we're all aware of fraud prevention. We know that there are certain acts that cannot take place. We have insider trading, we have tipper situations, and we have misappropriation of information. All of these can hold someone liable. We've seen it in publicly placed cases, for example, Martha Stewart, and we've seen it in private situations that are not so publicized. But understand that when we look at fraud prevention, we look at scienter and we look at the reliance of the victim. But you don't have to know the law in order to violate that. So when we talk about scienter, we talk about knowledge and we talk about what one should or should know, especially given their role in the marketplace or that industry. Now, I know we have the general public, and somebody may say, well, I didn't know that it was considered insider trading to do this or to get this information and then go ahead and purchase these particular stocks. Well, it doesn't matter whether you knew or didn't know, it's still considered insider trading, so you're still going to be held accountable for violation under the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. So be aware of it. Knowledge is not required when it comes to these types of violations. So also take a look at real property, estates, and land. And remember, this week you have your midterm dues. Let's take a quick look at that. If we look at the calendar to see when it opens, and then when it closes. So this week, the midterm is going to open on Thursday and close on Sunday. All right, so be aware of that, because you want to make sure that you mark it on your calendar, because I don't want you to miss it. Now, it is only one sign-on attempt, so you need to make sure that you allow yourself time to complete it in one sitting. When you do so, don't forget it is open book, open note, but supplemental materials are testable materials as well, so you want to be aware of that. I always think it's best to, if you print things out, to tab them so you have an idea of where they are and you can easily get to them. That was always one of my best ways of studying. Hopefully you you made copies and saved your quizzes like I advised you in the week 1, because you can utilize those to study from. Now, it doesn't mean that the questions are going to be exactly the same, but there may be another version of that question, and those quizzes give you guidance on that. So remember, your midterm opens on Thursday and closes on Sunday at 11:55 p.m. But you also have a discussion posting due this week, and it is a current event discussion. So go ahead and post to that by Thursday, and then of course your response posting by Sunday. If you all have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful week 4.